Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're joining us from around the world. Welcome to episode 59 of Web3 Warriors. Thanks for joining us. We got featuring Maxwell Step today, a prolific pixel artist, an amazing NFT creator who I've been following in this space since I jumped into NFTs in early 2021. I look forward to really hearing about his creative process and his background. Welcome, Maxwell. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. Really happy to have this chat with you. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm happy to have you here. A fellow Canadian joining us from Montreal, Quebec, or just outside Montreal. So that's always nice to have a fellow Canadian here. We're definitely a global show. We've talked to people at all different corners of the world. So it's nice to be back home and talking to you here just on the East Coast. Yes, welcome everyone to Web3 Warriors. I'm David Karoma, your host. I go by Chrome in the metaverse. And today for episode 59, we'll be looking at another angle of the creator economy, as we always do on Web3 Warriors, and what's possible here on the blockchain in this new digital space. And specifically, we're looking at pixel art today. It is a very interesting genre of art, definitely like purely digital. It always speaks to me as someone who grew up with video games from the old Nintendo through the 90s, you know, definitely a big gamer. And that's always been part of what appeals to me about pixel art. But I'm also curious about, you know, maybe there's some other part of the origin story of pixel art that I don't really know about. And I also think it's a very interesting art form specifically for NFTs and for the blockchain space, because it is so purely digital and it does kind of have a bit of a gamer vibe it gives off. And so it seems, you know, as we jump further into this digital space that we're going to be seeing more and more of it. And we definitely see a lot of popular pixel art in the NFT space and across Web3. So we're just going to really look at why that is, and maybe some of the inspirations behind Maxwell's pixel art specifically, which really just pops with really vibrant colors, a lot of really beautiful, diverse faces, and it's just really impressive to see. So I always like to see it. But is there more to pixel art than just gaming and nostalgia, you know? So that's what we'll get into today. I do want to welcome anybody who's here in the live chat. You definitely have the opportunity to ask any questions. We always like to get any interesting questions from the chat. You have a chance to win an NFT giveaway if you do that. We also have our metaverse spot at web3warriors.io. I want to invite anybody to go there, check it out, see some of the NFTs that we have on display, and you can also sign our guest book at that metaverse space for a chance to win an Avril 15 derivative wearable, which is a really cool purple helmet. Looks a lot like our PFP that we have on Twitter, and you can wear that around in the Voxels metaverse. Shout out to Jagar, an amazing creator who built that for us and also has an amazing NFT. So go check out MetaVoxels on Twitter. Definitely mad love for Jagar, and he's very creative, and appreciate that wearable that he's contributed to our community. So without any other further ado, I think we're going to jump over to Maxwell and really get a little bit of his background and hear some of the inspirations behind this amazing pixel art that we've got on the screen here. So welcome, Maxwell. Thank you for joining. Maybe before we jump into your NFT collections, can you give us a little bit of background? You know, where do you come from? What inspired your art? And how did you get into Web3 specifically? Welcome.
Thank you. So yeah, background, a little about me. I grew up drawing from ever since I remember. I watch cartoons, anime, and then I'll just take the pencil and paper, and then I'll start to copy what I would see. And so I've done that for like the longest time. And then ever since I was a kid, I was like, I'm gonna just be an artist. I'm just gonna be an artist. And that's what I want to do. I just want to do anything creative. And so I was lucky that I didn't have much pressure to no, don't do art or, do something else type of thing. And so, I think that helped to nurture my creative side, as well,
nice.
Growing up.
Nice. It's good and then, when you have that encouragement, right?
Exactly. And so, I lost my parents pretty young. And so, when that happened, I kind of lost a little bit of touch with being creative and artistic. But the same year, I think it was 2009 was the year I lost my mom. I was put into this teens program. It's called a leadership program, summer program. Had a lot of teens that had troubles at home, and a lot of people from foster home or group homes and that type of thing. And then there was the coordinator there that was she just looked at us and she's like, everybody has a talent. It doesn't matter what you think. Everybody has a talent and everybody's good at something. And if you're good at something, just do it to the utmost and see where it brings you. And so she kind of pushed that, encouragement back into me. And I'm like, yo, I could draw, so let me push that. And then I started really, what I started doing was drawing and designing t-shirts. And I was super into doing that. And so I did that for the longest while. And then I entered when I went to Cégep, I went into illustration and design. So I continued to just, hone my skills with drawing because I didn't have access to Photoshop and all of these things.
Okay.
I only had that when I was older, I think around 17, 18. And that's when I discovered this, digital art form outside of just the physical art form. And so I would be doing both at the same time, where I'm doing paintings and so on, but then I'm also learning how to do digital art. And then fast forward, when I graduated, I just dove into doing t-shirt designs. I was just tunnel vision. I want to do this. So I started a clothing line at the time when I graduated. Nice. And then I was doing that. I was selling t-shirts. And then I was working for this company that actually, designed merchandise for bands around US and Canada. So that really pushed me to in the graphic design world, where now I'm getting those types of graphic design skills. Then from there, I went and got a job just designing t-shirts for Walmart, Winners,
wow.
Ardennes. I did some stuff for Fashion Nova as well in the beginning when they had just started doing men's clothes. So that really, broadened my skills and everything. But the thing that was missing in all of that was I didn't have something I could call my own, I didn't have art that represented me and that I could be yo, this is me, this is my art, this is what I've been putting out. Because I've been just doing stuff for other people where, and then you lose that kind of personal touch, and it just felt empty inside. It felt I was doing creative things, but I was still missing something. And then I spent some time just being okay, you know what? I need to go back to the drawing board, take back some basic, art skills anatomy, drawing, that type of stuff. And I did that for a couple of months. And I was I need to find a style. I need to, develop a style that can represent. When you see it, you're okay, this is something from Maxwell. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
And then I was going through that phase, and then I remember one day, my wife was like, I was feeling bummed out about work, and she's like, "Yo, just stay home, just call in sick." You know what I mean? Just take it easy, And I was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll take it easy." Called in sick, stayed home, and then I was just scrolling through Instagram, and then I saw somebody drawing something, and he was like on Photoshop, and he was so zoomed in. I saw pixels, like it was pixelated, right? Because it was so zoomed in, and I'm like, "Oh, that's dope!" And then all the nostalgia just came running back, because like I grew up on the pixel art, and I used to like I'm always drawn to pixel art type games, but I never realized that I was like drawn to it that way. As the moment that I saw that, it clicked, and I'm like, "Yo, I could like maybe like," because I used to really love drawing portraits as well, and so I was like, I could like mix this with pixel art, you know what I mean? Like, and see what comes about it. And then I started like Googling to see if there was like any artists that were doing, like the type of style that I was doing. Like, it's like portrait style, pixel art. And I didn't see much of it. And not only that, like, I didn't see any like, people of color or anything,
Right.
no diversity whatsoever. And then it just started fleshing out. I'm like, yo, there's no diversity in pixel art games or pixel art in general, you know what I mean? And I'm like, damn, this is a whole, new world to tap in. And so then the next day I went to work. I went into work early, went on the computer, and then I started drawing like my first portrait in pixel art just to test it out to see if I can actually do this, if it's gonna give the result that I wanted. And then I did the first drawing, I looked at it, I'm like, yo, this is it. And then I just knew. And then every day I was just like pushing it out. I think this was like, I believe this was 2019. This was 2019. So this was 2019 that I started doing pixel art. So yeah, 2019 I started in the summer of 2019 I started doing pixel art, and then I never turned back, and I continued doing it. And then here we are.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing
yeah.
that whole run up. So you definitely have the traditional art background. You've been an artist since early years, throughout your teenage years. Definitely sorry to hear about the loss of the parents. I know how that goes. I lost my mother at a young age as well, so I know it can make an imprint for sure. Wow, so that's really powerful, man. So awesome. Jumping into the pixel art, and specifically the fact that you saw a dearth of diversity in pixel art, and specifically the portrait angle. So I have one of your pieces up right now that's just beautiful, with the girl with her like braids or ponytail kind of thing happening, and it's just like the shading and the way that you work with the colors, like you definitely get the full portrait effect. It's really, really impressive. So with that, how did you jump from that in 2019 into I think you were one of the early ones into NFTs and Web3, and so how did you find out about that, and how did you kind of marry the two, and what made you jump into NFTs?
So what was happening, so like I said, 2019 I started a pixel art, and so I was just like posting heavily on Instagram. I was like posting every day. I would be posting on Instagram my pixel art portraits. And then COVID came in 2020, and then stuff started to, everything was weird, right, in the world, we all know. And then on social media as well, things were like, I was seeing that like, Instagram, I wasn't getting the same reach, the algorithms and so on. And I'm like, and then also I was like looking to like, I didn't have like a community built, right? I saw a lot of pixel artists, but it was harder. You don't really find like communities around like art on Instagram. And so I was like, let me see what's on Twitter. You know what I mean? Let me see, let me go see Twitter. And then I saw like a whole community of like pixel artists on Twitter. And there was already some that I followed on Instagram and that followed me. And so then I just tapped into Twitter, and I was like, okay, let me just start posting on Twitter, try to build up, a community around that, because it'll be easier to like talk with people, interact, and like, build a community around the art. And then also it's easier to like interact with other artists in the pixel art community. And then I did that for a couple months. And then I noticed that because my pixel art is so different from what is like really like in the pixel art community, because it's games, right? It's it's like a lot of these like games, indie games type style and so on. So I wasn't getting the same like, I wasn't getting that type of like love, let's say, or inclusion within the pixel art community. But I didn't care, I'm like, I'm just here to share the art and inspire whoever, and then it's not gonna stop me from doing the art regardless. And then I saw like an artist post, like it was a pixel. Actually, no, I saw a digital artist. She does like digital paintings. She posted that she sold like some artwork online, and I was like, what the heck? Like, how does she, sell this digital piece?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then as I'm like, going down the rabbit hole, I see that she has like a super rare account. I'm like, what is super rare? And then I'm seeing like she just sold this for this and this. I'm like, what is going on? Like, what is this? You know what I'm saying?
Mind blown.
Yeah. And then I see another pixel artist that I was like in contact with that I've spoken to a bit of times, and he had like more of a bigger following and so on. And then I saw he as well just like tweeted, just sold this piece for like 2,000 something, and then I was like, holy, like he's selling like, his art, you know what I mean?
No
And
doubt.
note that I was selling art, but like through commissions, right? So like I was posting, and then I'll get people to reach out, be like, hey, I want to commission you, and so on. But then I saw a whole new world where I was like, this is just like the traditional world where you just like, sell your art to like a collector. And then I'm going down the rabbit hole of what is an NFT? What is this? Checking out like, like I've heard of crypto from like years back, but then I never dove into it. But then I'm seeing this like whole new potential of like, I'm like, hey, I'm already posting my stuff on Instagram for free. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
And then I'm like, why not try my hand at like seeing if I can, sell it, at the same time and create a stream of income that way. And so that's what happened. I just spent like, I think like 2 days just like digging deep. It was like, I think around like October, November of 2020.
Okay.
And then I saw like, yeah, there's like no information about NFTs. I went on YouTube. There was like maybe like 1 or 2 videos. And I'm like, okay, this is early. Like I need to get into this now, or else I'm gonna regret it later if I just be like, oh, I don't know. It's like, it sounds like a scam or whatever. I'm like, I have nothing to lose. You know what I mean? It's just like, I'm already posting my art. Might as well, see where this can bring me. And so then I planned out, like I made my account, made my crypto wallet, did all of that type of stuff. And then I was ready to like mint. And so I minted like late December, but it's like the holidays and so on. So I'm like, I'm just gonna mint, leave it there for now. I won't tweet about it, won't talk about it. It's holidays. Nobody's gonna be looking at it anyways. And then I think it was like January 7th, 2021 or something around that, where I'm like, okay, let me push it and like tweet. And then I tweeted, hey, just minted this piece, blah, 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 blah. And then the next day I sold one. It was like I think it was a piece that had like 10 editions. And then I sold 1 edition. I'm like, holy, this is like real. Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then after that, there was just like a flooding of like people that wanted commissions. And then that's when like the following just started to grow organically from there. And then I just started continue to push, my art and just I just continue to push my art as much as possible. Yeah.
So you're kind of inspired by other pixel artists who were kind of early to NFTs, and you thought, wow, this is really possible. Like actually selling my art on the blockchain and making some income, making some real revenue. That's awesome. Yeah. I love hearing that like light switch going off moment. So you kind of touched on this a little bit with the lack of diversity in that, and definitely being a portrait artist specifically. But what would you say are kind of your main motivations or your main inspiration behind the type of pixel art that you do?
Yeah, I think, so like you said, the main thing is really like the representation of diversity. I feel like in pixel art there's a lack of, and not even just for like the art itself, but like when you think about like pixel art games, right, there's a huge lack of like, from what I know, a huge lack of diversity when it comes to like pixel art. But like over the years, we've seen most of like the most popular pixel art games don't have diversity whatsoever. And so I think that's like a main motivator where it's like, I want to showcase, people in all types of forms and, different shades in this art form that is like seen as, boxed in, right? This art form of pixel art is like, it's like, no, it belongs here, that type of thing. But I'm trying to like, push those boundaries to be like, no, it's just like any type of thing. It's just like taking up a paintbrush with paint, it's like, it's just another type of way of expressing art. It doesn't have to be put into this box where it's like, no, it's just for like video games. No,
Right.
it could be anything. And so that motivates me to push to like show, like push the boundaries of like, this is what you can do with pixel art. You can make something that's so like digital, because, you know, like pixel art is like really digital, but make it look like it's painterly. You know what I mean?
It's in the name, right? Pixel art, you know, the pixel is a digital form.
Exactly.
Yeah. No,
So
that's
that,
fascinating.
yeah.
Very cool. And how would you say it does differ, since you do come from a bit of that traditional angle, right? Like, obviously there are clear differences in the mode of that you're using for art being on the computer. How have you experienced kind of that difference, and maybe even looking at the market, right? Like, how does it feel being a pixel artist in a sea of traditional artists or even digital artists that just don't do pixels, right?
Yeah, I think it's a weird one. I think, you know, because sometimes pixel art has like a bad rap as like being like, it's like cheap type of art. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just like, especially with like the amount of like NFT projects that come out with pixel art, right? You know, people feel like it's just like, I've seen people tweet about it, you know, talk about it, be like, they don't understand, like pixel art is not like art. It's just like, you know, it's put together so quickly, and then it's like, so I feel like the battle is, you know, mainly just showing that no, it does take time. There's skills behind it, you know, like I'm using a tablet, you know, when I draw these characters, so it's like, and then you have to think about like the shading, the lighting. So these traditional things that, you know, like you learn apply the same way when I'm doing like the type of art that I'm doing. But even like just general like pixel art, like the more, you know, game pixel art, it still has, you need those skills too as well. You know what I mean?
No
You need those
doubt.
skills. You need to know about lighting, shading, you know, the types of colors that you're using. And so all of these apply the same way that it applies in the traditional world, that it applies in the like digital, more painting world. The same applies for pixel art as well. I think it just gets a bad rap because it looks simple, you know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
simplified type of thing. But it's like a thing that I like to say. I'm like, pixel art is the original digital art. You know
No
what I mean?
doubt.
Like when art started to be on computers, that's what it looked like. That's why video games started as pixel art, because there was no other way to show, you know, these like illustrations
No doubt.
on a screen that could only show this amount of pixels. And so pixel art is like the original digital art. And even every digital art now, when you zoom in, it's pixels, you know, whether it's 3D, whether it's because it's on a screen.
That's
And
true.
so pixel art is everything that you see is pixel art. The only difference is that you know, some people choose to showcase the squares and some people don't, you know what I mean? And
Right.
I think that's all it is. And I think, you know, as much as pixel art gets that like sometimes that bad rep, you can't deny that it's the OG of digital art. That's what started digital art. From, you know, if there wasn't pixel art, there wouldn't be digital art.
That's
And
it.
so, you know, people forget that. And so I think it's like I feel good knowing that I'm using such a like old, it's an old art form but new, you know what I mean, at the same time,
Exactly. Yeah.
but it's old, and then using it in this way that it's like, no, the same thing applies. The way that I do it, it looks like a painting. And it kind of like mixes your brain up that you're not like sure. It's like, oh, this is pixel art. You know what I mean? Like that kind of
Yeah.
moment where
You
you're
got to
like,
do the
oh,
double
this is,
take. Like,
yeah,
what?
you got to do the double take. Exactly. You know? And so it's just to show that, you know, no, this is pixel art. And it's like, it gives you that same vibe as like if it was just a painting or so on. So, yeah.
No doubt, no doubt. That's amazing. The OG of digital art and the core of digital art, to your point,
Yeah.
right? It all comes down to pixels ultimately. So that's amazing. On your point about the turnaround time, how long would you say on average, like one of these pieces takes you to pull together? Obviously, it depends on what it is, but on average, what do you think, like the average turnaround time?
Yeah, I think it depends for sure. That we all know. Yeah, I think some of these portraits, you know, like if it's not much details, usually like I take like 2 hours, maybe an hour to two
No
hours
doubt.
on it. When it's more like, you know, conceptualized pieces, or there's different characters, or I make it like I make the canvas way bigger so there's more pixels in it, then that can take me like, you know, a good 6-7 hours that I'd stretch out over the week or so on that I'd be working on, and so on. Yeah.
No
And
doubt.
then and then sometimes, there's like concepts that you want to pull out and then it just doesn't work. And then you kind of like go back and restart and so on. And then also if I'm like adding animation to it, then it takes longer as well.
No doubt.
So
no
yeah,
doubt.
I'd say around that. Like if it's simple, like a 1 hour to 2 hour type thing. If it's more complicated, I'm looking at like 6-7 hours.
Nice. That's cool. And what about the phygital angle? I know you mentioned, and I was perusing your website a little bit, and you've got some actual prints of a lot of these amazing pixel portraits. Have you thought about connecting the physical prints to your NFTs? Is that something you're looking at in the future? What they call phygital, where you buy the digital, but maybe you get some element of the physical as well?
Yeah, so I actually did do something. It was when February, Black History Month. So basically, I published a pixel art coloring book
I saw that.
of Black leaders in Black history. And so yeah, it's like simplified pixel portraits of Black leaders in history, and then it's pixel art form, so like you color by number kind of thing, and then after you would get the final pixel art piece after you colored in all the colors and so on. And so all of these portraits, I made them into like a digital NFT collection, and then like each collector that collects one of the pieces then gets a signed copy of the coloring book. So I did try to mix that. I didn't sell any of the NFTs so far, but I'm not too worried about that.
Oh, they're really cute. I'm just looking through them now. I missed these during Black History Month, but it's really cool, man. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And I can see how it could be fun for kids too. So
exactly.
If you ordered one of these, you would get a book of all of them, or would you get like a copy of the one that you ordered?
No, you would get a book of all of them basically.
Oh, wow.
So in the book, it has all of the characters in them. It's on Amazon. It's on a link. I think it's on my website as well, and so on. But so that's basically it. So like you have all the characters inside, and then you have like the facts, like the bio, like small facts that are easily readable, that go with the piece and so on. And then you could like even cut it out if you wanted to, frame. And it's good for like not too young kids, but like it's good for young and adults, because it's like a fun way of just like color by number, kind of like puzzle type of vibe. So
that's dope, man. That's super creative. Congrats. That's really cool, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's really cool. Awesome. I'm gonna have to grab one of those for my boy. He likes coloring. He's just turning 5 actually on Monday. Shout out to Nathaniel. He's got his birthday weekend this weekend. This is really cool, man. Yeah, you're ahead of the game then. You got the phygitals down pat for sure. And you mentioned that you were into fashion as well. I didn't know that you had that background as well. Are you looking at the digital fashion, the whole new wearable kind of craze, and the idea of selling what could be physical merch in the metaverse as like digital merch? Is that something you're interested in or looking at?
I never thought of it, to be honest. But that's a good idea, because I've had such an extensive background in it, and I still do commissions of like t-shirt design. Sometimes I get reached out by like some t-shirt companies or fashion companies to like they commission me for some t-shirt design. So I'm still doing that still. And so that I never thought of mixing that into the digital world as wearables, but that's a really good idea. I think I'll definitely look into that
cool.
as well. Yeah, definitely.
That's what we like to do on Web3 Warriors too. We stoke that inspiration, maybe see what we can come to. So I do want to ask you a little bit about the glitches as well. I'm a big fan of the glitches. I really love the art when they first dropped. I know they've gone through crazy peaks and valleys as far as the floor price, but it's very interesting just as a collection, right? How did you get involved with it, and maybe just give us a little bit of background on this glitches NFT project, if you could?
Yeah, so definitely. So funny thing is that so I remember one, I think it's a person on Twitter they had like DM'd me and they're like, yo, because this was like right around the craze of like the PFPs and so on.
Yeah.
And this person was like, yo, you should do like, it would be so cool to have like a collection of like your pixel art portraits, but like a PFP project and so on. I was like, yeah, that sounds dope, but I wasn't sure at the time. I'm like, I don't know, like I don't even know how to go about it and do this whole thing. And I just want to focus on one thing at a time and so on. And then I think like a couple like months after, Daniel, this guy, he reached out. He had like a huge following in the NFT space, and he was like looking for pixel artists. He wanted to start a project. He reached out to a few, reached out to me, and then he he's like, I want us to do a pixel, like, project that's like around diversity and inclusion and so on. And I'm like, oh, this is like perfectly up my alley, because that's like what my art is focusing on in the pixel art world, trying to like showcase that. And then as we like started to discuss about it and everything, I was like, he's like, we wanted me to be the artist for it. And I was like, I was super down and so on. And like, I had like, green light to just, do my thing, right? Essentially. And so this is the perfect way to like do it, like bring that like diversity and inclusion and true pixel art, like in my style, but like in a more, simplified style. As you've seen, the glitches are more simplified than my usual portraits. And then, yeah, that's how it came to be. And I was super stoked about it. And I'm like, this is going to be a change compared to like all the other projects that, didn't have that aspect towards it, where, we're just focused on just, the diversity, focused on the different traits of humans that make us diverse, but at the same time, all the same. So that's what it came to be. Like you said, there's been, ups and downs. Right now I'm like, I don't know if you know, but I did like some art for like a V2, because there's some trouble getting like the contract over and all of these things. So there's like all of that. And so it's kind of like, I don't have the like keys or anything to like do anything with the glitches V1. And so that was my idea of doing the glitches V2, so I can take, the people from V1 and bring them over to the V2, so that way I have more control. And then I'm currently just like in talks with this like NFT, I don't know how to call them, but like they're a group, they're like doing like incubations with artists in like Japan and so on.
Wow.
And so I'm in contact with somebody there, and we're trying to build out like the brand properly for V2. So like I have like a deck that I did of like, the brand identity for V2 and so on. And so I'm going to be sharing that with the community pretty soon. And I'm also planning to like, do a kind of free drop for, glitches.
Glitch holders?
Glitch holders.
Let's go.
Yeah, sorry for the, kind of like the sorry for the wait, but,
No.
These things, I feel like, these things take time, and I don't see the rush into it as well, because I would not want to rush into it and then it just doesn't, bring any fruits. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I want to make sure that it comes out when it's supposed to come out, and, when it's the right time, it's the right time.
Yeah, exactly. Everything in due time when it's meant to happen. That's a really great learning lesson, I think, there. That's some good gems for any artists out there looking at the PFP space, especially right now. I think now is building time, exactly. No need to rush it out when, you're in a bear market. There's no guarantee you're going to sell out this, that, and the next thing. And on top of that, there's a learning lesson there in the fact that, yes, you learned a bit about PFPs and you were able to take your own creative art direction, but they were generative, right? And so I guess the setup on the back end of the generator and the actual smart contract, like you didn't quite have the knowledge to do that part of it at the time, right? And so you kind of worked with a team, you said Daniel, and they kind of helped pull that part of it together. And so then the learning lesson there is there's a good reason to do that, to actually collaborate with other people and try to like execute on a project. But on the flip side, now, they're gone, right? They're kind of doing their own thing, and you don't have any ownership over the original glitches. So now you're looking at doing a V2 where you're going to have it on your own contract then, or you'd be working with the glitches team. So that's a really interesting kind of story of the glitches, and now I'm really excited about this V2. I can't wait to see. I think you teased out a few options or examples where they're just a little bit more higher detailed pixel art, right? Pixel portraits.
Yes, exactly. So they're like more higher detailed, same concept as the V1, but just like a little more, oomph, I guess, you know what I mean?
No doubt.
Just to differentiate it a lot more, and but still keeping within the same realm, and so on. So
Nice,
yeah.
nice. And you think you're gonna go with 5,000 again, or are you gonna keep it a little more exclusive, or don't know yet?
I don't know yet, to be honest. It's like gonna have to like flesh it out and see what makes the most sense. For sure, that's gonna have to be a minimum, just so people that have had already can
That's true. Yeah, I guess
transfer
so.
transfer over exactly. So with that, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's really exciting. I can't wait to see it. And the floor on this is actually pretty thin. So the floor price looks low, but all it takes is maybe like 10 purchases and you're back up in like 0.01, 0.02. It's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a really cool project, man. And thanks for sharing that background, a little bit of alpha. We can look forward to the Glitches V2 2.0. Is there anything else kind of on your radar for 2023 as far as big goals, big plans? You dropped that coloring book. It's really cool. Do you have any kind of big, ambitious goals you're trying to hit this year?
Yeah, so one that is this year is I'm trying to do a lot more like physical stuff. So like I said, I have a traditional art background and so on. And I started like doing a few like abstract pixel art pieces, but these pixel art pieces that are abstract, I'm trying to like do paintings of them, and then see how that goes. So I want to just paint, you know what I mean? Just paint. And by doing it abstract, it puts less pressure onto like what I'm actually making, but just it's like free for all, just like letting go of that creativity. So I want to be doing that. And then I want to be like setting up like an Etsy shop, because I have like some cool like lapel pins and like sticker ideas that I want to get out as well. And then start doing that, just like physical. Like my motto is always like, just do it. You know what I mean? Just do it, see where it brings you. Just like the coloring book, I'm like, had the idea, just do it, execute on it, let it live, and then whatever happens.
Yeah, I dig that. That's awesome, man. It's really impressive, actually. Just do the creative thing for the sake of the creative thing, and then hope that your collectors or your fan base resonates with it. And maybe they don't see it right away. Maybe it doesn't sell as much as you're hoping in the short term, but there's still that potential long term wise, right?
Exactly.
And that's the other good thing about NFTs. It's immutable. Everything can happen in due course. Like I've seen a lot of these stories on Twitter where someone was getting a little frustrated not selling an NFT for 3 months, 6 months, and then they sell one for 1 ETH, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is amazing, and they're super excited. So anything can happen, and that's definitely a way it goes. So looking at the pixel art inspirations, and you mentioned that you kind of had a little bit of that video game background as well. Do you have any plans yourself for the metaverse? Do you have like a gallery in the metaverse, or any kind of plans to have your own space where maybe your pixel art is on the walls and is, kind of thematic, kind of promotion of your work? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I think I've done that on Cyber. I'd have to like I'd have to put the link in my links to like access it. But I do believe I've put some artwork up in like on Cyber, like in a little gallery space there. So I've done that already in a virtual space. But yeah, I think going for like future wise, it would be cool to have some kind of like more grander, digital exhibition, and like / maybe physical at the same time, type of thing. I think that'd be really cool. Also, just for the fact that it's like pixel art, I feel like you don't see much of that, like pixel art in the grander scheme, like so like big and like in your face. And I want to break that, and I want to bring that pixel art to the forefront and show like this is what you can do with it. This is how it could look. It's like you may think it's not as like fancy as like maybe a digital painting or a traditional painting, but it can be if it's done in a certain way. So
yeah, for sure. And the detail is just like really, it's head turning, and I can imagine you're walking around in the metaverse and you're seeing all these regular kind of typical art pieces, which is still cool, but then you see this like space that's just decked out in all these pixel portraits, and it'll definitely make your head turn. So hopefully we'll see that in the future. I've noticed you're definitely, you just mentioned it, right? Even working with Etsy, some kind of Web2 platforms. But you've also, dabbled in Zora. You've done a little bit of stuff on, was it Telly? I believe you have the NFT Gateway as well, right? So what's your thoughts on kind of the different, or Nifty Gateway, the different platforms and the different kind of marketplaces that are, I wouldn't say they're necessarily even competing with each other, but some have advantages over others. Do you have a preference, I guess, my question, and what inspires you to be so kind of spread out across different marketplaces?
Yeah, so I don't have a preference. I mean, maybe I do have a preference. I think in the beginning when I started, I only started on Rarible. And Rarible is where I made like a lot of sales on Rarible, where I'll just like push out editions and so on in the early days. And then I remember like early 2021, I think it was around like March, I got onto Foundation. And then Foundation has been good for like my, one of ones and like at a higher price. And then I would just use Rarible and Foundation for like the longest while, where I'm kind of like doing editions on Rarible. And so at like lower price points, and then Foundation, I'd only put like art pieces that are just singular that I want to sell for like a certain price. And so I use them both for like different reasons. I felt like it worked really well for me during that year, 2021. And then, Nifty Gateway was kind of like, they were doing like a partnership with like just a few artists, because they were launching, like having artists on their platform. And so they reached out to me. So that was more of like an exclusive thing, where I got like early access, and then they wanted me to put my artwork on their site to like sell and so on. So that was more of like a partnership. Same thing with Telly as well. It was same thing as like how it happened with Nifties. And so Nifties and Telly were like these like partnerships type of things. And then Zora and all of these other, I think it was Zora's the only other one, I believe. It's kind of just like me experimenting to see, if, because I feel like I have nothing to lose, you know what I mean? I put it on one platform, you never know. It could, and see what works out best for you, So that's mainly it. If I do have a preference now, no. Right now, I just like, maybe I do have a slight preference. I kind of like release on manifolds now. I just do my own contracts.
Yeah, you get the custom contract.
Yeah, I get the custom contracts, and then I just like list to sale on Foundation, essentially. Nice. For now. Yeah.
And you have any thoughts around OpenSea? You seem to be partial to Rarible, even when it was kind of Rarible and OpenSea leading the way for the bigger open markets. There are obviously more exclusive ones like Super Rare, and even Foundation, I think, was exclusive. But what are your thoughts on OpenSea? And like, is there a reason you kind of stay away from necessarily using that as a primary market?
I don't know what it was, but in the beginning, I think because Rarible was working so well, I think I just didn't bother too much with OpenSea, and then I felt like OpenSea was too saturated.
Right.
I think in the beginning when I was looking, because I saw people doing stuff on OpenSea, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should try it, but then it just looked too saturated, and I was like, I don't know. Rarible is already working for me. People know where to go get those editions on Rarible already. Maybe I don't need to use OpenSea. They already can get it on Rarible, and so right. I just stuck to Rarible in that way. I never went to OpenSea, and because it has been working for so long, and then because it's so saturated as well, I'm like, what, it's okay. I can just continue this way. I think Rarible now works less good for me. Like in the last year or so, I haven't done the same. But I mean, the whole NFT space is completely different. You know what I mean? So
Rarible does seem like it's been weird. It kind of got maybe diluted would be the word for that as well.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I know they spread out to include Tezos on there as well, which might have impacted it. It's interesting though, the way that the different marketplaces kind of position them, and you have done really well on Rarible. That's kind of where I found your pieces originally, especially that CMYK piece. I really love that piece. I remember. I wish I was able to snag that one, but maybe I'll have to think about that. But just the way the colors pop on it, I remember just it really caught my eye, man. It's really amazing. Have you thought about other blockchains at all? Have you dabbled in Tezos or Solana, or are you definitely just more comfortable on Ethereum?
I did at some point wanted to go on Tezos, and then I think I got like a blocker where I wasn't able to. It was a while back though. I I think I had a block. I can't remember what the blocker was, and then after I just kind of like put it to rest, and then didn't go back to it. But I definitely would try to like explore more. I in the future. So I'm thinking of doing that. And I think for Solana as well, I think I tried, and then I think my blockage for Solana was that I couldn't just purchase I couldn't purchase the Solana with my credit card or something. It was just not working.
Yeah.
And it was just being blocked all the time. And then I was like, oh, okay, forget it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
So
it's
you
kind
know,
of a pain getting that Solana over in some cases.
yeah, exactly. And I'm like, is it because I'm Canadian? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, damn, you know.
I found the best way was through crypto.com as far as a way to get Solana and Tezos, actually. I think they're both pretty good on that one, but that's just been my experience. Everyone kind of has their own. I did want to ask you briefly about these Tribu masks as well. What's the story behind that collection? They're really cool little kids with big masks on, big African masks on.
Yeah. So that was an idea that I had gotten like in the early days, right? This was like before like the PFPs were really popping. It was more when people were doing like these huge collections, but like hand by hand, right? And they're making like it's kind of like the PFPs, but it was just like all hand drawn, and it was like really popular. And I had this idea of doing this, and so I was starting to do this. I'm like, I'm gonna be dropping these, continuously. But then after, I think I had dropped it like maybe a month before the whole like glitches came about, and then after my whole time was just like glitches spent, and then that fell off, and then I was like, and then I didn't see, and the whole scheme of things was like, you know, really more PFPs and less about the like, you know, these dropped. But I do plan to revisit it for sure, because I plan to do like so many of them, and I had only dropped 5, but I'm happy all 5 sold, you know what I mean? And so that's blessed. And then but I do plan to revisit in the future. It was just like a cool idea that I wanted, again, around the diversity and inclusion, because, you know, I didn't see much of it at the time when I was doing it. I didn't see much of, you know, that type of art. And, you know, we've seen in the NFT space what type of art gets like, you know, glorified and what's really more popular, and that, you know, so, you know, even I'm still sticking to my lane. And then, you know, at some point it's going to be, you know, recognized, and whoever wants to like, you know, collect will collect. At the end of the day, that's how I feel. You know, it's just like, you know, the time will come, you know, there's no rush to it. You know, just put out the art that you wanted to put out. You know, either you sell today or you don't. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, if you're doing the art for the art, then you already accomplished the one goal, which is create. You know, so that's my motto. You know, and just like create to create. If, you know, don't stress on the likes or the comments or the engagement and all of these, because like at the end of the day, you can't control it. And, you know, like the engagement and all of that doesn't add it's not the value of the piece that you're making. You know what I mean? You know, first and foremost, you add that value. If you're happy with what you created, then that's all you need. You know what I mean? And then anything that comes afterwards, it's just a plus. It's just a bonus. You know, if people love it, that's a bonus. If people want to collect it, that's a bonus. But firstly, well, you need to be happy with it, and then that's it. Once you're happy with the piece that you created, that's it, man. You solidified it. That's all you need. You know, you don't need the validation from others. That validation could come like from yourself first, and then whatever happens after happens.
For sure. I appreciate that, man. That's dropping gems right there. Every creator, every artist needs to know that, not just in Web3, frankly, but especially in Web3, because I do think there's an obsession with metrics. There's an obsession with the idea that your floor price defines your value, which it does not. You know, I like to say, you know, I personally look at the Afro Droids project, and I find it more valuable than the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And I'm just saying that personally, because culturally it speaks to me. Technology, you know, from the actual lore, the story, the art, all of that speaks to me a lot more than the Bored Apes do, you know. And kudos to the Bored Apes, props to them. They're doing a lot of interesting stuff. Their metaverse looks amazing. But overall, you know, the value, like you say, you know, we've seen what gets valued in this space, and unfortunately it's kind of a lot of goofy stuff, a lot of not diverse stuff, and I do think that the stuff that is very culturally significant or relevant, and even historically relevant, right? Like I look at Kofi with his 3D African masks, you know, like that is like prime, you know, provenance, right? Like it's putting something that is so important for the history of the African continent onto the blockchain and immutably putting it on there, right? And so similarly, yeah, with your collections, even the glitches, you know, like these things have provenance, they have a story in the space of the NFT space that is significant, you know, despite what their floor price might be. And so I look at these projects, and it is my hope, not just for financial reasons, but actually for cultural reasons, that value is seen, you know, in the years or the months and years ahead, you know. So that's a good point. I love that. It's all about patience, all about knowing your value intrinsically, right? And not worrying about the value that society or the wider Web3 space kind of puts on you, right? So I can hear your kids there. I think they want your attention. So we'll be winding down soon. It's all good. If anybody in the live chat has any questions, now's your time to ask. We'll be wrapping up pretty quickly. So I did want to ask you briefly, like, what is the Web3 community like where you're at, right? So you're in Montreal, Quebec. Do you find a lot of other NFT enthusiasts around there? And are you doing much like IRL kind of outreach? Do you have any plans to go to events? Like we're going to be in NFT NYC this week coming up. So we're excited about that. But how is it looking in Montreal specifically? And then for you, kind of IRL wise, are you meeting people that are in the Web3 space?
So I'm not meeting people in the Web3. I think I know one person. I think what's her name? I think Lana Dena. I can't remember specifically her family name, but her name is Lana, Lana. She's from Montreal. That's like the one person that I know very well that's in the NFT space from Montreal. Haven't met in real life or anything. And then when it comes to like in Montreal, like the NFT, you know, I know of like this NFT gallery. I can't remember their name. Right now, but they started pretty early too, like doing like NFT galleries, like in real life, have them up. They have like a space downtown Montreal where you can see, like they pick some artists and then they put up their like art pieces and you could go and see them and so on. And I know that they're like close with like, what's his name? Fuck Render as well and so on. The only thing that I find with them, because I've like joined their like Discord or like I remember like them posting like who are some artists in like, you know, Montreal or that are in NFT space and so on, and then I like tagged myself and so on, but they've never reached out. And and like all the artists that they always put up ever since their inception has always been white artists. So I don't know if there's any bias there or anything, and if they like, it's always been that, and also like a lot of like 3D art. So I don't know if they have like a certain style that they want to upkeep in their gallery or so on. But I haven't seen any diversity coming from them at all. And so, but that's the only people that I know.
And that's out of BC, right? Fuck Render? They're in Vancouver, right?
Yeah, Fuck Render's from Vancouver, but he was one artist that I saw that was inside of that the gallery put up his art and so on as a Canadian artist.
I got you.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Wild, man. That's wild. So there was like a Canadian, like a gallery of Canadian NFT artists, and you applied and they didn't put you up. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like they had like a whole tweet, like early days, and they're like, and they actually asked like specifically from Montreal, because they're in Montreal, this gallery, right? And they asked from Montreal, but like it's not like they had like a huge, they didn't have a huge following or had like a huge list of people that commented. Right. And so I was like, you know, pretty much like, hey, like we're such a small community, you know, I'm pretty sure like, I'm like, hey, like, you know, but never reached out, never had contact with them.
And you're making sales too. It's not like you're like damn, man, you're an OG as far, like you just said, you started in 2020, which is before most people, including myself, started in the NFT space. So you are an OG, at least by the standards of us, the class of 2021. You know, you predate the class of 2021, which is pretty impressive. So sorry to hear that, but that's the type of thing we're talking about, right? That lack of value. You know, it's frustrating on one hand, but on the other hand, you know, like you said, it's about the technology, it's about the community and the creativity, you know, and maybe our communities don't have the vast amounts of wealth that some other Web3 communities have. But I do think on the cultural side, you know, especially when I meet with these people in real life, like I have at Miami, New York last year, really excited for this week as well. That's when it really becomes real. And you see that, like, all of the floor price, all of the thousands of people on Twitter or Instagram, all this stuff, all of the views on YouTube, like none of that really matters when you're meeting these people like face to face, and who's actually there in person having fun and kind of pushing the culture forward. And generally it's us, you know.
Exactly.
That's what matters more. But I do hope and pray that that financial value is realized in the coming, you know, years, and I'm confident that it will be, because we're just going to keep building, and people who resonate with our art and resonate with the culture are going to join and realize what we're doing here, just like you realized it on Twitter, you know, those years ago, right? Like, these people are actually selling art on the blockchain and making real money. Like, come here, come join us, you know. That's what's up. Cool. So last question, what do you say to those that are out there kind of doubting the power of the blockchain, wondering why you're putting your art on the blockchain, and maybe even skeptical of it? What do you say to those voices out there?
Yeah, so people that are doubting, skeptical, you know, I like to always say, just like, you know, obviously do your research first and make sure that, you know, make sure you're comfortable with whatever you're doing. But also, you know, with a lot of things in life, you know, you're gonna be fearful of things because there's unknowns, right? But if you have nothing to lose, then you have nothing to lose. You know, that, I think for me, how it was like, yeah, this blockchain stuff looks really weird, that people are selling their art for, like, you know, money, like digital art for money. It just didn't make sense at the time. But just because it doesn't make sense to you now doesn't mean it won't make sense later on. You know, and so for me, it was like, hey, let me just, you know, put this out here because I have nothing to lose. I'm already putting it on Instagram for free. Why not take the jump and see, you know, how far it can bring me? You know what I mean? And I'm so happy that I did take the jump, because, you know, like you've seen, like, I've been able to sell, I've been able to build a community around the art, you know, and I've been able to have people be inspired by it. You know, I think mainly, you know, if you're having doubts, just think of, you know, having your art be shared with a lot of people is very valuable, because you don't know who you will inspire. You don't know what type of influence you'd have on somebody. Like, it just takes that one person to see it, and then that will make a difference. You know what I mean? And it also, like, if you inspire one person, that's enough, because that person is gonna then now inspire others afterwards, and it's gonna just be a domino effect. And yeah, you know, like, your art, if your art speaks to you, it's definitely gonna speak to somebody else out there for sure. And just think about the grander scheme of things. Just think about, like, where your art can go. You know, just have that visual map of, like, where do you want your art to go, and then take those steps towards it, without regards to, like, what can happen in between, because you know where you're headed. There's gonna be bumps in the road, so and so forth. But where you know where you're going, there's nothing that can, you know, stop you.
That's what's up. Dropping gems. Appreciate you, Maxwell. Thank you so much for joining us, and for dropping these gems and sharing your creative process and a lot of the inspirations behind it. You're an inspiration to me. I know you're an inspiration to a lot of artists and creators in the space here, and I wish you much continued success. Everyone should check you out on Twitter. That's Maxwell Step, Maxwell_Step on Twitter. You can find his art and his link tree there and go support him. Appreciate you so much, man. With that, I think we'll be winding down. I got to go off to my boy's birthday party. Happy birthday, Nathaniel.
Happy birthday
turning 5. But yeah, thank you so much, man. Thank you to everyone who tuned in, and we'll have it live on the podcast networks hopefully by tomorrow. With Easter weekend, it might be Monday at this rate it's going, but really excited, man, and really thank you so much. I hope we're gonna get you back on the show again in the future, and I'd love to just see how your NFT career continues to evolve, and specifically the Glitches V2 I'm very excited about, so keep us posted on that, man.
Yes,
and
definitely.
Happy Easter. Have an amazing weekend. Go spend time with your family. I appreciate you. And
to
everybody else, to everyone else tuned in, we'll be live not next week because I'm going to be in New York, so 2 weeks from now we'll have our next episode, and we're talking to the Wakanda team. So peace out, everyone. catch you in the metaverse. Take care.